Fine. Now let's see what is meant by variable partitioning. Okay, variable partitioning is also called as dynamic partitioning. Okay, it is also called as dynamic partitioning. See, coming to the difference, let us assume this is our RAM. Okay, in case of fixed partitioning, what were we doing? We were dividing our RAM into fixed size partitions before actually placing any process, right? Which means the partitions will remain fixed. In case if you have divided it this way, this will always remain fixed and it will never change, okay, irrespective of size of the process. Now coming to variable partitioning, it is quite different, okay. Now coming to variable partitioning, what we do is we don't actually do any partition before placing any process, okay. Before any process coming into the RAM, we will not do any partitioning. What we will do is our RAM will be as it is. Now let us assume from the hard disk a new process, say process P1 is coming into the RAM, okay. Let us assume its size is 3 MB, okay. Now what we do is, we will take 3 MB from the RAM and then we will accommodate it, okay. P1 will be placed, okay. There is nothing, there is no partition which is fixed, right? The partition size is actually a variable, hence it is called as variable partitioning. The partition size is variable because it really depends on the size of the process, okay. In case if process size is 3 MB, we have accommodated 3 MB. In case if it is 5 MB, we could have accommodated 5 MB for P1, right? And so I can say that the partition size is highly variable and so it is called as variable partitioning. Fine. Now in case if a new process say P2 comes into the RAM whose size is 5 MB, then 5 MB will be allocated to process P2, okay. This is how variable partitioning works. Now one simple thing you can understand from this is there is no internal fragmentation problem. See, what is meant by internal fragmentation problem? Initially, in case of fixed partitioning, it happened because we actually partitioned the RAM into fixed size partitions, right? Into fixed partitions. And so in fixed partitioning, what we did is we divided the RAM into fixed size partitions and we said that this partition size will never change. And now in case here, if the size of the process is less than the size of partition, this remaining space is going to get wasted. That is what we said as internal fragmentation. But such problems will not happen in case of variable partitioning because in variable partitioning, the size of the partition really depends on the size of the process and so our process will not waste any extra space, okay. Our process, in case if it needs 3 MB, it will exactly take 3 MB, okay. It will exactly take 3 MB and so no space will get wasted within this part, okay. So internal fragmentation problem has been completely avoided by using a variable partitioning, okay. Also degree of multiprogramming is not limited. See, coming to fixed partitioning, degree of multiprogramming equal to number of partitions, right? But here degree of multiprogramming is not limited because see, in case if very small processes accommodate, we can place more processes, right? If the size of process is very small, then we can place lot of processes and so our degree of multiprogramming will become very high. And in case if the size of a process is very big, okay, in case if the size of process is extremely big, then the degree of multiprogramming will actually decrease. So degree of multiprogramming, it is not limited by the number of partitions, okay. It really depends on the size of the process and so it is not limited, fine. Also, size of a process is not limited by the size of the largest partition, rather it is limited by the size of the RAM. See, coming to fixed partitioning, in case if we had 4 partitions and let us assume the size of the largest partition is 5 MB, then we cannot place a process more than 5 MB in the RAM in case of fixed partitioning. But that is not the case coming to variable partitioning because in variable partitioning, the size of a single process is limited by the size of the RAM. See, in the worst case, our process can completely accommodate the RAM, right? Of course, our operating system's code will be present in the RAM always, that is fine. But apart from that, it can completely accommodate the space, right? So, size of a process is not limited by the size of the largest partition, rather it is limited by the size of the RAM in case of variable partitioning, okay? Fine. Now, variable partitioning suffers from the problem of external fragmentation. Now, let's see what is meant by external fragmentation. See, let us assume our OS code is present inside the RAM, okay. This is our RAM. Now, let us assume process P1 size is say 3 MB and it got occupied, okay. Its size is 3 MB. A new process say P2 came into the RAM and its size is say 2 MB. Okay, new process say P3 came into the RAM, its size is again 3 MB, and P4 came into the RAM, its size is 2 MB. P5 came into the RAM and its size is again 3 MB. Okay, right? This is how our RAM is present right now. Okay, let us assume like this. Now let us assume process P2 has completed its execution. You know that in case if a process has completed its execution, we will remove it from the RAM, right? So we have removed P2. Fine. So this 2 MB is vacant right now, right? No process is accommodated in this space. Fine. Let us assume process P4 also got completed and so it is completely removed from the RAM. Now let us assume a new process, say P6, whose size is 4 MB comes into the RAM. Okay. Now what will we do? Can we place 2 MB over here and 2 MB over here? Because P6 needs 4 MB, right? We have exactly 4 MB in the RAM. All other space has been completely occupied. So we have only 4 MB of space inside our RAM. Now my question is, can we place 2 MB over here and 2 MB over here? That is not possible because we are actually using contiguous allocation, right? Variable partitioning is also a type of contiguous allocation. In case if you place 2 MB over here and 2 MB over here, the address space of this process is not actually present in contiguous RAM addresses, and so it is not a contiguous allocation. But that should not happen, okay? It should be a contiguous allocation because variable partitioning is a type of contiguous allocation. So we cannot do that. Now what we shall do, we can do is, only thing we can do is, we should be wasting the space completely. Without utilizing the space, we will actually waste the space. Again a disadvantage, right? See, what is the disadvantage here? Though we have enough space to place allocate our process in the RAM, still we are not able to do it because we wanted to achieve the property of contiguous allocation. Okay, that is the only reason we are not actually allocating the processes over here. Now this is called as external fragmentation. Okay, external fragmentation exists when there is enough space for the process inside the RAM, but still we are not able to do that because we wanted to achieve the property of contiguous allocation. And now in case if we allocate it, we will fail in that property, so we are not going to allocate the process. Okay, so contiguous allocation here, definitely it is, we have worked with variable partitioning, right? Initially our RAM was empty. Then the process P1 with 3 MB came into the RAM, then P2 with 2 MB came into the RAM, P3 with 3 MB came into the RAM, P4 with 2 MB came into the RAM, P5 with 3 MB came into the RAM. Then what happened? P2 left the RAM, P4 left the RAM. Now a new process of size 4 MB, P6 needs to come into the RAM. Though we have 4 MB of space, still we are not able to accommodate it. So variable partitioning suffers from the problem of external fragmentation. It is quite clear, right? See, this problem will not happen coming to fixed partition, right? This problem will never happen coming to fixed partitioning. Why? See, coming to fixed partitioning, now you might say that, let us assume in fixed partitioning our RAM will be initially partitioned, right? Let us assume this is how RAM is partitioned. Let us assume this size is 2 MB, its size is 3 MB, its size is 2 MB, and its size is again 2 MB. Okay. Now, can variable partitioning happen here? You might say that a process say P1 of size 1 MB came into the RAM, and now this 1 MB of space is remaining. Okay. Let us assume this is 1 MB, and again here 2 MB process came into the RAM. Okay, this is P1, this is P2, and again we have 1 MB of space which is free. Okay, now let us assume here P3 accommodated the complete space and P4 accommodated to the complete space. Now in case if a 2 MB process comes into the RAM, we have 2 MB over here, but still we are not allocating the process, and so it is external fragmentation. You might say like that, but it is not external fragmentation. Why? See, this is completely different. This is actually internal fragmentation. Why? Because it is internal to the partition. Okay, this space is getting wasted internal to the partition. This is not the case coming to external when we were seeing about variable partitioning. The space is getting wasted across partitions, right? Which means outside of our partition the space is getting wasted, but here the space is getting wasted inside the partition, and so this is clearly an internal fragmentation problem. Okay, see, even if you say that this is external fragmentation because we are not able to occupy the space, it is still not possible. Why? Because the main rule of fixed partitioning is every partition can hold exactly one process. Now in case if I try to place a new process with 1 MB over here and 1 MB over here, it is not actually following that rule, right? We are placing more than one process in a single partition, and that is not allowed in case of fixed partitioning. So this is clearly internal fragmentation, right? So coming to variable partitioning, it suffers from internal fragmentation problem. It doesn't suffer from internal fragmentation problem. It also gets rid of these two problems comparing to fixed partitioning, but still it introduces a new problem which is nothing but external fragmentation. Okay, fine.